Okay, well, welcome. Welcome all. My name is Steve Hammel. I'm from the Department of Business. I'm a professor there, assistant professor. And I'm thrilled to be part of the Common Read again. I've done it a few times under Ms. Susan Madera, who directs these every year. And it's just such a great program. And I'm so thrilled to be involved in it. So that's why I participate. We always find some type of interesting aspect to bring forward to the students. And this year with Rosie Perez and her book, it was kind of a neat read. And we're going to talk today about ethics. It's mainly about ethics. Typically, my lectures are always telling you this or telling you that or giving you some type of information to learn. But today is more of an interactive type of discussion almost. Sort of what could we have done differently, or what should we have done differently, or maybe how could we change things? Because frankly, you don't think about topics that Ms. Perez has been talking about in her book on a regular basis, because these are really, to a large degree, forgotten people. You know, people that have to live in, you know, foster care or a home or whatever it is. And really it's quite unfortunate, you know, that folks have to live that way. But we're going to talk about how potentially we could, I don't know, understand it, so maybe we can improve it as people and as a society. So I've entitled this lecture, The Rosie Perez Experience, The Ethical Role of Government and Private Organizations in Supporting Underprivileged Individuals. And, you know, it's amazing how it happens to just everybody. You know, it's not, you're not immune to it. It can happen just like this. Your life has changed. So, getting along, you know, we all have different ethical standards, and our society has various ethical standards. And in my class in business law, which I'm tying this in through in the ethics section, we have to ask ourselves, you know, what is it that we should be doing as a society? What is it that we should be doing as individuals in order to help improve the situation? Because most of us, I would think, do not necessarily consider ourselves as people who would have any involvement in this at all. But it's possible that we could have some level of involvement as we go through our various experiences and obligations. So really we need to talk about how it is that society responds to the needs of these people, either through the government directly or through organizations that could be funded or supported by the government. In this case, the Catholic Church with the nuns' homes that, you know, that the nuns that ran these programs to help the kids in the 1960s. Truth be known, Ms. Perez is only a year or so younger than I am. You know, I've seen the changes that have occurred over the past 50 years, and really it's quite astonishing. But as some of the information I'm going to give you today shows, there's still a lot of need in the world. You know, it's a very difficult thing for the state and the local governments to assume the obligations that the parents normally would have for the kids. And the kids didn't ask for it. It was they were just born, and they really have no say in their destiny, you know, while they're minors. I would hope that you stop me, put your hands up, even shout it out. You know, it's really meant to be something that you contribute. And even I had a brief discussion a little bit in my class on these topics, and the students that were present on that day really had a lot of insight and questions, you know, that hopefully will enrich this whole dialogue. Okay, so please consider and just ask questions. This is not meant to be a formal lecture. It's meant to be an exploration of the issues. Just to recap for those of you that may have not recalled all the details of the book, you know, Ms. Perez was born in Brooklyn at Greenpoint Hospital, which is gone now, to my understanding. She was born to the parents Ishmael Serrano and Lydia Perez. That was a whole story in the first third of the book as to how they met. You know, it was a little bit dysfunctional, or maybe a lot dysfunctional, I guess I can properly say, because he was already married to another woman and had a whole other family. And meanwhile, he was, you know, dating this woman, Lydia Perez. And obviously, Rosie was the issue, the child of these folks. Lydia and Ishmael were obviously Puerto Rican, and Rosie is of Puerto Rican descent. When she was born, the mother, Lydia, didn't have the ability to care for Rosie, but the sister of the mom, Lydia, Anna Dominga Orterio Serrano Roque, also known as Tia, Auntie Tia, Mia Tia, is it? Auntie Tia, stepped up and was taking care of Rosie. You know, it's a great thing when you have family that's able to take care of Rosie. Rosie had a nice little life, and she says that she remembers components, you know, of her life. They come back as a flashback, you know, while she was with her aunt in the apartment. For me, I'm lucky to remember things from when I was 25, you know, but she's got a much better memory than I do. You know, I can barely remember where I left the car, you know, so, but nonetheless, she recounts the good days living with her aunt in the apartment, happy days. You know, she was singing and dancing. She was a musical child, had rhythm, had a family that loved and supported her, and everything was going by all measurable standards very well. But what changed? Well, you know, she was well settled, but around the age of 3, her mother came back to her aunt and says, I'm taking Rosie to live somewhere else. And it was actually a confrontation, according to the book, you know, where the aunt chased her out the hall, and she actually mentioned it. I would have liked a little bit of expansion, but she said she had a heart attack right there, literally. She said she had a heart attack or a stroke or something, literally. And I was wondering, it's quite possible, like this ripping away of the child from the aunt could cause that sort of trauma. But obviously it traumatized Rosie at the same time. You know, that would really traumatize me. I suppose it would traumatize all of you also. So here it is, everything was going very well, and life started to change at 3. So eventually she went from the home, which was like more of an institutional type of situation, to a group home, which was up in, I think, Wappingers up in upstate New York. So it was a group home is generally like a privately purchased home that's run by a certain number of adults 24 hours a day, and they have these children that live like a family in the home. So she was selected for that, and it was lucky, I guess, that she was able to do that, because it was an improvement, according to Rosie, from the home. Eventually, Rosie reached the age of majority. You know, you become independent. Generally, we call majority the age of 18, but I think she was a little bit unclear as to exactly when she left. But let's say it was the age of majority. She was able to run her own life. She moved to Los Angeles, California, which, you know, that's kind of a bold move on your own, just to move to LA. You know, boy, it's huge. She wound up living in a kind of a difficult section of town, and I think she calls it the jungle, and that was like gang infested and you know, very difficult circumstances. And the one she was subletting from had ticked off the local gang people, and they were mad, so they took all her stuff, and Rosie had to spend the night, wonder if the gang people were going to come back and do harm to her. You know, that has to be very traumatizing to an individual. And she said even as she got older that experience really affected her. But, you know, she continued to work and improve herself. She used to go out with her girlfriends from community college. She was going to community college at the time. And she started as a fly girl on this show, Soul Train. You know, I didn't really watch it that much back then, but I mean, I don't have a rhythm gene, so it doesn't, you know, I don't really seem to have that same level of interest. But Soul Train was a huge show, and they would have these dancers, and she was so talented that she was able to do that. Later, she moved on to being a choreographer and obviously a star. She furthermore gave back to the community through HIV education programs and awareness efforts. So Rosie really, you know, rose above all this trauma that was in her life. It's quite an amazing story. She had these very difficult parts of her life, and this whole thing is just designed as a background to sort of be a point of jumping off for our discussion. But it's really quite amazing that she was abandoned. Literally, she was abandoned as a baby, and as the book talks about, she was abused by her mother. Whenever she finally saw her mother, met her mother, her mother would physically and mentally abuse her. You know, that's tough. I mean, some people, can't get past that. Not just the beating part, but sometimes you're tempted to do something that would be that would alter the rest of your life. You know, if you respond in kind. You know, so it's really kind of a difficult spot for somebody to be in. She was abused financially and emotionally by her mother and her half-brothers and sisters. When she finally found out in the home that she had these half-brothers and sisters, that's further trauma. Can you imagine? Here you have all these half-brothers and sisters that you don't even know. And you know what a half-brother is, or a half-sister, right? She talks about it. You know, that's you share a common parent, but you don't have the exact same parents. So if you have the same father, but not the same mother, or the same mother and not the same father, you're a half brother or sister. So it can really be quite extensive, you know, when you put the people together. But you do have this common linking through one parent. Also, she was not fond of the discipline imposed by the nuns at the home. The nuns were very strict. And I can tell you that from my experience, I didn't go to Catholic school, but my father did. And he had often told me about how strict the nuns were back in the 50s. You know, they were really strict. Why? Well, you have all types of people from all different backgrounds. So they wanted to try to have a sense of structure, and they didn't want people, you know, getting out of control. But were they too strict? According to Rosie, and most people now would say, yeah, they were probably too strict. So that can have a traumatizing effect on a child too. This sometimes would result in emotional outbursts on her, you know, on her part, which is difficult to deal with, especially in a structured environment. If you're in a structured environment and you have an emotional outburst, you're going to wind up with punishments and things, and that's going to further make the situation worse. You know, so really, she had to make a decision, Rosie, ultimately. When does that decision come? Comes in different places in people's lives. But luckily for Rosie, it came at a point where she was able to take the proper course. And while she was at the home, you know, she realized that she wasn't going to fight the system and just go with it. Although she didn't like everything, she stayed with it. The people at the group home or at the home saw her potential. You know, they knew that she was a highly intelligent person. She was scoring very highly on the tests. As a result of her scoring high on these tests, she was given the opportunity to participate in the Catholic school education that most of her peers in the home wouldn't be able to participate in. So they took her out and gave her, you know, special educational opportunities. You know, she also was able to go to the group home, you know, as a success. And she developed a relationship after she met her father over many years. You know, and that's a traumatizing thing when you don't have a relationship with a parent that you know that's out there. You know, but she was able to get over those issues and move on, which was huge. She developed a beautiful relationship with her father, especially towards the end of the book. And she never gave up. I mean, what an amazing thing is that she never gave up. I mean, many people might be tempted just to give up and say, you know, this is too hard. But Rosie never did, clearly. You know, so she was able to sort of amplify the good parts, the strong parts, the music, the dancing, the strength, you know, and she multiplied that into an incredible amount of success, obviously. So the thing is, really, you want to say, is this still an issue? You know, is it still something that's a problem? Well, you know, obviously it is. You know, we're talking, you know, Rosie's experience goes back, what, 40 years ago, 35 to 40 years ago? It's a long time, but still today, as you can see, normally I wander over, but I've been instructed to be tethered to the podium here, so I'll use my little mouse. But you can see here in the 2011, this is not even going back to the 60s, but just going back from 2011, the number of children in foster care has steadily risen from 397, almost 398,000, to in 2015, September of 15, to 428,000 almost. I mean, it's a lot of people in foster care. It's really sort of developed also. You don't see like the same type of foster care as you did when she was young. You know, you have a bunch of kids living in a building, you know, like in a big building, although that may still exist. Most of the care now is with foster families. You know, and the foster families are supported by various organizations, including but not limited to the federal government, state government, and you know, regional governments. They also report, because Rosie was in there, I think she said about 8 years. I think she was in the system for about 8 years. And this is actually consistent currently with what's happening now. The report during this period says basically the average stay is 8.6 years, but the most typical stay is 7.8 years. So some children will be there for a longer period, some for a shorter period, but the average stay, the most typical stay would be 7.8 years. So unfortunately, that has not changed. It would be better if you could sort of shorten up the stay, but there's a lot of issues that come into this, and that's really what we're going to try to talk about, the balancing of the various interests. Because normally you'd say, well, Rosie should not have been there for that long. That would be really the best type of thing that we can hope for. Here we have what they call the AFCARS report, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration of Children and Families. And it's, again, this is all the same information from the report, same report. But it shows that in 2011, that number of foster carers we just went over, 397, and you could see it went down slightly in 12, then it took a big run up through 15 of almost 428,000. They talk about the number of number of the children that entered foster care in the fiscal year. FY is for fiscal year. Now it's 270,000 almost for talk about entering. Exiting, well, the number for exiting has been about the same. But you have to be careful with exiting foster care, because exiting foster care doesn't necessarily mean that they've been placed, as children someplace. It just means they could reach the age of majority and then they're out. So the system takes care of them. But it just shows that they're going through the system. What else? Waiting for adoption, it's been about the same. Good number, 62,000. The number of adopted with public child welfare agency involvement, stayed pretty constant over the past 5 or 6 years, about 54,000 in 15. So you can see that the numbers are quite significant. It's not like we would hope. We would hope that this would have, since the 1960s, been reduced to a lot lower levels. When you talk about government involvement, you're not just talking about the physical caring for the children, because you got to care for every aspect of them: food, shelter, health care, education, everything. When you add all this up, when you look at it, the government spending on welfare, federal, state, local, is this website, usgovernmentspending.com, has guesstimated it to be about $1.127 billion. So that's like a lot of money. I mean, so people say, oh, we need more money into it, but there's still a fair amount of money flowing into the system. Is it enough money? That's what we're going to talk about. What is really enough money? What are the needs? Are we taking care of the people? So, Medicaid, other welfare lines, it all comes into the analysis. On a chart basis, they show that, this is for 2017, this year. Obviously, we're not fully through 17 yet, so it's a little bit of an estimate. But you can see that the federal, state, and local funding is broken out in different amounts, but clearly the heavy lifting is being done by the federal government. The federal government is really doing the heavy lifting here. And it's really quite amazing when you look at all the numbers, in the report. I don't have it, so I had it here somewhere. Oh well, the report is quite interesting to go through. If you happen to go through it, it's a great thing. It divides it up by region, by race, by gender, by age, and it's really quite amazing. It cuts across everything. It's not specific to anybody. So it's kind of sad that way. So we talk about societal responsibility and personal responsibility when it comes to these issues. And when you talk about these various issues, you have to really think about what is it that you have to do in order to support or try to break down this situation. It's very difficult. This is really where the core of our discussion is going to be today. So when you have, she talked about in her book, she talked about like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just be able to like have friends, different type of friends. She talked about people in her life that had confidence in her, like those two guys from the home that had confidence in Rosie. They thought she was something special. And she talked about constantly not wanting to disappoint them, and that she tried to be a good person and follow the rules because she didn't want them to be disappointed in her actions. I mean, and that's really important, right? It's an individual responsibility. How could it be that just one or two individuals would cause somebody to try to stay on course? Well, she didn't have really the heavy relationships that a lot of you, I'm sure probably most of you, enjoy. You don't need 20 friends. I mean, on Facebook you can have, I don't do Facebook, but you can have like 8 million friends, right? Oh, I got 8 million friends on Facebook. That's terrific. But they're meaningless. You probably have a core of maybe 5 friends, probably maximum 5 really good friends in your life that you'll carry through a good part of your life. If you have a problem, you have a question, they support you, they'll come to help you. Who's going to pick you up in the middle of Manhattan, 3:30 in the morning on a Sunday night? One of your 5 buddies, right? They're going to come pick you up. But your 8 million Facebook friends are going to be like, oh, it stinks to be in Manhattan at that hour. Good luck. Get a cab, right? So it's really that core, from my reading of the book, it's really that core that she was missing. And she instead used these other relationships that she had developed to try to stabilize her emotional center. And I think as individuals, when we come across people like this that you know are having difficult times, it might really be your own ethical conduct to say, you know something, I think I should really become more involved with this person to help in some type of emotional way. I'm not talking about financial. I'm not talking about here's $20, get yourself a pastrami sandwich. I'm just saying that the emotional support is so important, and it's something that government can't pay for. You can pay every nickel that comes into the federal government to support people, but without that emotional attachment, you're just not going to have it. And this is what I talk about is individual ethics. So your individual ethics is really something very important when it comes to these things, and you will come across people. Has anybody met anybody that would sort of fit into Rosie's category or bumped into somebody one way or another? No? Honestly? Wow. Okay. I mean, but there's people, I must be an anomaly, because there are people in my life that have had problems, that haven't had the support thing, haven't had the emotional development, haven't had the, sense of family. And it's just the right thing to do, like doing mentorship, coming alongside people, trying to help out. And all of us can do that, beyond just paying your taxes. So I think if everybody came alongside somebody like this as part of your individual ethics, that could go a long way. And look if you made friends with Rosie Perez, obviously you're not in the same age group, but if I had met her and I became friends with her when she was having these rough times, I would expect nothing. I would be like, and look, she winds up at the pinnacle of success. I mean, it's really quite an astonishing thing what people do with themselves. And Rosie stands as a beacon of hope, for anybody that would have this level of despair. So by coming alongside them, it could be other benefits to just see that satisfaction. Really, the problem occurred, and Rosie talked about it in the book, between the rights of the parents and the rights of the child. The legal standard, really with children, is the best interest of the child. It's called the best interest of the child standard. Not a very witty name, right? The best interest of good. What does it mean? No? Okay. It means you got to do the right thing for the kid. But would it have been the right thing for Rosie to be placed somewhere else? Yeah. But why wasn't it done? Do you think that the state is oblivious to what's happening?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, her mother was sneaky, I feel like.
Her mother was sneaky? I think Rosie said she was crazy. Is that what she said?
Yeah, well.
Is that have a crazy mother?
She knew how to fool people.
Yeah. I don't think crazy is a legal diagnosis, in a book, but she certainly had issues. Would you say manipulative?
Yeah, definitely.
I would think manipulative for certain. And was she looking out for the best interest of Rosie? No. I mean, I would have left Rosie with the aunt. Everything's going great, I mean, there was and the aunt is killing herself to pay for Rosie.
I think she mentioned in the book that the reason they put her there was because her other brothers were there, and her stepfather, I guess, wasn't happy that the love child
Yeah.
was living in a regular house. It wasn't fair for the rest of them. Throw her in there too. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, does the microphone pick up the questions?
Yes.
Oh, good, excellent. So if they didn't, I would repeat them to the best of my ability. But you're right. You know, the father would normally have some type of ability to get involved. But in this case, the mother didn't list him, according to Rosie, on the birth certificate. He was a nothing. It was just a blank where the father's name was. So it would be hard for him. I mean, now we have DNA testing, right? You say, oh, just run the kid down and get DNA testing, proof. But back then in the 60s and the 70s, it's not the same analysis. So the state is always, you're quite correct, Marcos, with the idea that the parents have rights. Parental rights are there. And the state is really hard-pressed to terminate parental rights. You know, yes?
But the child's rights were not being kind of respected by the state, which was providing the money to the nuns, basically. They were paying for that.
Right.
For the place, so monitoring was not there at the time. I think there's more now, but back then, she was being ignored, all of them, actually, because they had a doctor, wacky doctor in the system. I don't remember his name, but he would send them to another place for medical.
Oh, right. You would send him to the mental hospital.
Worse.
Right. That's and part of it was that, you know, there was no fund. Well, there's not no funding, but the funding was very lax. You know, there wasn't a lot because do the nuns get like super salaries where they can go out and drive a Porsche? No. You know, the nuns aren't doing it for the money. I can guarantee that. But if you have to pay people to do this job, you know, it's going to increase the funding. So they were doing the best that they could with the resources that they had. And there obviously were not enough resources in the system, clearly. And they should have had better support for the children. But the problem is that they didn't want to cut off the parental rights of mom, Sylvia. Because if the state comes in and says, we are going to do this with Rosie, that means that we're going to trump the interests of the mother. And the mother wanted Rosie to be in with the nuns. That was what she wanted. And it's a tension. It's really a tough tension because, I mean, I'm sure if any of you guys have kids, bless you, have kids or think about having kids, you would probably be horrified to think that the state could come and terminate your relationship with your child. Boom, kid out, you're going to live here. I mean, that's like, you know, my wife gets upset when she thinks that somebody can come and take the dog away, you know? I mean, a child is so much of a greater bond. You know, it's like you would throw yourself in front of a train. Well, most people would. You'd throw yourself in front of a train for your child, right?
It's the biggest fear.
It's the biggest fear. That's right. It is. It's a huge fear. It's a huge fear. So the state understands that. And the state does not want to easily remove the rights of the parents from the child. But in order to do what's right for the child, you got to sometimes terminate, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like the state is also at fault because when you look at it, she had so many kids, and obviously she would receive some type of money for every kid. So when does the state look at it and say, wait, you know, she has 6, 7 kids, all of them in group homes. When do they put a stop to it, or realize that there might be another motive for her having so many kids? Because I mean, there's no logic to it. Kid after kid after kid, group home, group home, group home. Money, money, money. But she was receiving some kind of money because of these kids.
That's true.
I mean, are they blind or are they playing dumb or?
You know,
there should be, you know.
There's only so many records you can check through.
Well,
How many people in New York do you think there are?
Right, but I'm saying when one mother has 7 kids and the state is supporting her, they don't. You're telling me they don't know that this is happening? I mean, and I think it has to do with education all the way down because I mean you showed figures. You know what is it? Almost $1 trillion.
yeah, right. It's huge,
Right?
huge amount of money. It's,
But where is that money going? Because you go to these low-income communities, show me where you could see that the government is investing $1 trillion. Okay, welfare, but is that really helping?
Well, this is it. I'm going to come back to your question. Was there a follow-up on the same question? Yeah.
Well, like, let's say you have these many kids. There's no way to actually prove that you're, like just taking their money. And if you're trying to take their kids away, that's a pretty hard defense. Like, you know, these kids come from this lady. You know, the state can't just take them. And that could start like something so much bigger.
Besides taking them, they can't infringe on women's rights to continue to have children.
See? You see? This is where the United...
Board. Not that I agree with her having so many children and putting them in group homes, but if you make it a standard across the board, you're now infringing on women's rights.
But I'm not saying the state should infringe on her rights. What I'm saying is the state should stop supporting.
Yeah, but this is the problem.
You want to have 30 kids, have them, but you're going to maintain them.
Let's say, I mean, let's say that your system would eventually work. People would eventually wise up, right? They would eventually wise up. But until they do, the kids that don't receive the public assistance, they're going to starve. Yeah, but he's 4. What's he going? You're going to see him at the track or something. No, I'm just.
No, what I mean, but even if you put it in these group homes, just don't let the mother benefit from it. You know what I mean? I obviously, I'm not for letting these kids starve on the streets. Obviously not. But what I don't agree with is have 20 kids, let the mother benefit, because the reality is you have 20 kids, the state's giving you money. That mother most likely is not spending a dime on her kids.
Well, I don't know about a dime, but you know, there's a lot of studies. There's a lot of studies exactly on point what you're discussing. Where does the money go? Because they spend the money. They got food stamps. They got all those other programs.
The kids are still starving. The kids are still.
Or they're not well dressed or something. They go out with no coat on in the middle of winter.
I mean, I'm not saying infringing on her right. Have as many kids as you like.
But it's not the child's fault. You know, the child's fault is the child is brought into the world, and now because the mother just fails to honor her obligation as a parent, as a human, you know, a human obligation. There's nobody left. The individual won't do it. The state has to come in. So, and that's where the overload on the system comes in, because there's just so many needy children, and the resources, you know, just keep flowing in, but it never seems to get the job done. And there's most likely, I agree, structural changes need to be made to the system. You know, maybe there should be some type of agreement, like joint custody or something almost, like the state can make certain decisions without fully terminating the rights. You know, there are certain things, but they do come up against the constitutional issues, you know, reproductive rights, right? I mean, women have the right, you know, under the 4th Amendment and other amendments under privacy, you know, the privacy right to control your own body. So you can't really just easily do that.
Yeah, but take Rosie in a group home. Why? I'm sure that her mother was benefiting from her kid being in the group home.
Rosie said that in the book.
Right, so, but why? If they're in a group home, okay, the state's already doing half of the job, and they're also giving her money. No, give the money to the group home.
Well, they did. They do most of that. I think once the child's removed, they should be making the payments to the. But she may have had some need. So maybe during a certain number of years. I don't know exactly. She didn't go specifically.
I feel like I personally, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't want to trade their rights, but that's where you have to cut it off. I mean, maybe there's an easier way, but I don't know. I just don't think that works. So.
I feel like the home also knew about the aunt and how she like took care of her, and they know that she could take care of Rosie. So why didn't they let her just take care?
Why didn't the home just let her go down to the aunt's house? This is why. Because the mother said no. Lydia said no. She is going to be in control of the destiny of the child. So if the mother disagreed with the action of the home, and that's why she talked about it in the book, she would have to go to her mother's house and get beaten every once in a while, because if she didn't see her mother, the mother would have called the group home and said, no more trips to the aunt's house in Bushwick, or you know, wherever it was. So that's why she would constantly return to the mother so that she can go back to the aunt's house. It's a very sad situation, you know, and she was a fairly sophisticated child to understand this that early, yes.
Yeah, like you said about like her having like 8, 9 children, they should like kind of look into her case, because this woman wasn't like really, let's say, she wasn't right in the head.
Stable, yeah.
She wasn't stable at all.
Yeah, I mean, even just the beginning of the book was so crazy. I was like, what am I reading? I had to read the beginning of the book because all the people coming in and out, I was like, I didn't understand all the relationships. Yeah.
I think most of these problems would be solved if Rosie said something, but she couldn't because she was afraid to get beaten, right? Like, fear inhibits her from saying anything that could benefit her from the very beginning.
Well, but also if you have a vindictive person that's controlling your life, you know, if they want to be vindictive, they can make your life a little bit more difficult than you would hope for. So it's a very delicate balance, and it's a hard thing. You know, yes?
Please remember that her mother was diagnosed as schizophrenic.
Yeah, I mean, she was meant.
Mental issues.
She was meant. Yeah, she was. But I mean, I guess Rosie, I guess, didn't fully understand that as a child what that meant. You know. Yeah, how could she? Right. I mean, it's just, and sometimes that revelation in itself, you know, realizing that your parent is maybe not looking out for your best interest. Can you imagine what type of psychological harm that does to a child? Knowing that your mother is using you as a pawn or some type of tool? I mean, gee, that's got to kill you, right?
Is there any age or any law that a kid can decide in a certain age that where he or she wants to live?
You know something, you very sophisticated question. You can have emancipation at a younger than majority age. So say she was 17, maybe even 16. You can sue for emancipation.
17 is too far.
Yeah, so 18 is normally the age of majority. So that's when you can make your own decision.
She can make a decision even, she was very sensitive. And she can make this decision like when she was 10.
Yeah,
Who is loving her, who's taking care of her.
Yeah, to become emancipated is very difficult. You have to hire a lawyer, go to court, and especially in the 60s and the 70s, very unlikely. There was a very high-profile case in Florida a couple years ago where a young girl went to Florida and sued for emancipation because she didn't like her living situation. Very unusual, but she had a very bad situation. But yeah, you can have certain cases, but it's very rare, especially when you don't have means. You know, you just have no means. How would she even do it? You know, it's not easy, but you can. The answer is yes, you can, but it's not likely that a young child, younger than some 17, 16 maybe, would be able to do that, you know.
Okay, so how would you make a law that can separate the child and the mother if there is any harm between them, and word it in such a way that it cannot be skewed to?
You know, it's difficult to make a law that's on target because the courts will eventually rule on the particular law and say, you know, this is too harsh for mom, not good enough for the daughter, whatever, and it gets to be very hard. I mean, who put Rosie in the situation that she was in? The mother. You know, she wasn't deceased. You know, she was alive. A lot of times they have orphans. You know, there's a lot. I just for the heck of it, I said, gee, hey, you know, are there any famous people that were orphaned or living in homes, you know, that were placed in a similar situation that we would know about? And it turns out that there's a fair number of people who were either orphaned or were living in like some type of foster care over the years. And one of them is Coco Chanel, which is, her name is Gabrielle Bonheur, but it's Coco Chanel. Marilyn Monroe, a famous actress. Maybe nobody knows Marilyn Monroe. All right, well, the older people in the room know. Some Eddie Murphy, which I was shocked at. You know, he's a Long Island boy, right? Eddie Murphy. You know, Pierce Brosnan. He was Bond, James Bond. No. Some other people, somebody called Seal. I don't know, somebody from England. Neil Morrissey. John Lennon. How about that? From the Beatles. Also, people who grew up as orphans in foster care. Alexander Hamilton, you might know him. Andrew Jackson. Edgar Allan Poe. Ella Fitzgerald. How about Ella Fitzgerald, right? Anybody into jazz? No, we think we did. Some of them we mentioned. Malcolm X. Anybody know Malcolm X? No? But I mean, there's a lot of people that became very successful at overcoming what would seem almost insurmountable odds. You know, and how do they manage to do that? and it's quite a testament to these people, no matter where they wind up. And Rosie is one of these people. I mean, clearly she wound up taking a very bad situation and making the best of it. Was it easy? You know, I can't imagine that she would choose to have this type of existence. But do you think that this kind of existence, you think that her upbringing somehow changed her destiny? Do you think that she might have become so famous if she wasn't in this situation? Maybe, maybe not.
How many thousands of people? Is she the exception to the rule, or is she the rule herself?
I personally, I think that she would be skewed to the exception side, because I don't believe that the average person in her situation is going to be able to rise up to this level, because she talked about it in her book, how some of the kids got into various levels of trouble. You know, really, I don't want to, run down the other people in her life that were with her, but they had a variety of problems, across the whole spectrum. She's probably the only one in her group that made it to this level. But I mean, she talked about liking the United States Constitution and the federal government, and how it protected the rights and gave the opportunity to people, in the country. I mean, she might have wound up becoming an attorney, or she might have wound up becoming a doctor. She may have wound up just becoming like a person with a regular job and a stable sort of life. You don't know. But the point is that really, it's quite amazing that she was able to transform herself in such a way. I honestly, I don't know if I would have been able to reach those levels. I mean, because you kind of, if you just look at introspective kind of analysis, would you have been able, I'm not you, I mean just collectively, you be able to rise up just being objective?
Very few people. I didn't read about this book, but I read about Dr. Ben Carson.
Oh yes.
And he was similar. His childhood was very rough, but now he is a very successful neurosurgeon in politics, and there are a few cases
from Detroit.
Yeah, they go to positive ways.
Yeah, it's
negative. And there are many cases which goes down, like the parents put the kids sometimes in human trafficking and many things. So there are ups and downs.
That's incredibly sad, the last thing you just mentioned, because that is like, it's almost impossible to escape that, because you're being controlled by people. But you're right, Dr. Carson, I mean, if you look at his story, boy, yeah, it's simply, agree or disagree with his positions, you have to have respect for the man.
Yeah.
His mother couldn't even read.
Yes.
His mother couldn't read, but she would make believe that she could, and she would tell him to write, and then she would ask him questions after reading it. She couldn't read it, but she would make believe she could.
Very hardworking person.
She was a hardworking mother that was truly committed. A little different situation, but he was born in poverty.
Racism and many things come
Yes.
away, but he fight with everything, and now he's in a successful place.
That's right.
There are many things I don't like about him too, but mostly things are that he's very hardworking,
and so is Rosie. I mean, your parallel is very well taken.
Read the book yet, but I'm listening about the things.
Rosie, I mean, I got to tell you, she refused to give up. I mean, it's the most amazing thing, where she basically said, I am not letting this happen. And some of the other students, some of the other, her friends that were in the group home, they just sort of acted out. They wanted to be mean. They wanted to do bad things. I mean, did Rosie do some bad things? Yeah, she had a couple little problems, right? I mean, she lit the paper towels on fire in the bathroom. Oops! So the fire department came, and then she was smoking, right? She was smoking, and she was smoking. She threw the cigarette when a nun came in, and it lit up the towels, lit the orphanage thing on fire. It's like she had some problems in her life, but she acted out. But she didn't continue to go down. Oh no, time. I hate time restrictions. I'm getting the sign, but we'll try to wrap it up. But Rosie had so much adversity in her life, and she really did great. I got to say, she had a couple of marriages, that were challenges, right? And the part that I found really very, very hard to deal with is when she became successful, and she was supporting her mother and her stepsisters and stepbrothers She's supporting them. She's paying the freight for them, an apartment, paying for their stuff. And she went out, bought some stuff for herself, brought it into the apartment. And then they went and sold her things on the street. Here it is, she's paying for their lives, basically, with the money that she's earning, being a movie star or choreographer, whatever she's doing. And she's taking care of them. And still, the people are out selling her stuff on the street so they can have money to do whatever they want with. Beyond that, they're wrecking the place, not paying rent, not paying obligations. So then Rosie is sued, and she said she had to pay out in the hundreds of thousands of dollars after all the lawyers got done with her, you know, suing for all the stuff that the family did wrong after she was paying to support them. I mean, that really hurt me, because these people were kind of rotten to her entire life. Finally, she becomes rich and successful. She continues to do the right thing, even at the point where I might have said, you know what, who knows, right? But the thing is that she didn't. She didn't say that. She said, I'm going to still take care of you. And as a result, they still come back and give her more grief, you know? And she patched it up with her father. You know, her father was very upset because he couldn't really be involved with directing Rosie out of the group home. Why? He didn't have standing. He wasn't acknowledged to be the father. And since he wasn't the father, he had nothing to say about it. But she did eventually make up with the dad, and it was a kind of a nice ending, that even at the end, she did have a good relationship with her father. You know, so I found it inspirational. I don't know about you guys. I mean, but what's the takeaway? What's the takeaway from the book? I think the main takeaway from the book is never give up. Do the right thing. Stay with it. You know, and if you have somebody in your life like Rosie, you know, I would try to say, come alongside them. You know, shepherd them along. You know, try to do that, because it's really something, just basic humanity. You know, and it's a beautiful thing. You just don't know. It's really rewarding when you're able to do that. Susan, I think I'm about done. Okay, so any further questions? Look, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Hammel. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies, gentlemen, be well.